You know, the Quran is without a doubt one of the most influential books in all of human history. But for centuries, readers and scholars have been captivated by a puzzle right at its heart: its structure. It doesn't read like a linear story. So, what's the hidden blueprint holding it all together? Okay, let's really dive into this. So, the first thing you'll notice is that the Quran isn't organized chronologically. The chapters are not in the order they were revealed. And this was a totally deliberate choice, which immediately makes you ask, well, what was the organizing principle then? This isn't just some random collection of texts. There's a deep, intentional order hidden right under the surface. All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to peel back the layers of this incredible structure. We'll start with a scholarly key to its coherence. Then we'll look at some really clear examples in its words and themes. After that, we're going to explore a surprising numerical layer that some researchers believe ties the whole book together. And finally, we'll be left with a pretty big question. So, to even begin to solve this structural puzzle, Islamic scholars actually developed a whole specific field of study. It's the main tool they use to map out all the intricate connections woven throughout the text, and it's got a special name.
That science is called munasaba. At its core, munasaba is all about the study of coherence. It's the search for correlations, for similarities, and for the relationships between all the different parts of the Quran, from one verse to the next and from one chapter to another. It reveals a text that isn't just a sequence, but an intricate web.
To make this idea a little more concrete, think of the Quran like a map. The coordinates are the fixed positions of each chapter and verse. That's just where they are in the book. The correlations are the lines you can draw between those points, connecting them through shared themes, ideas, and language. Munasaba, then, is basically the art and science of drawing all those lines. So what do these connections actually look like in practice? Well, they can be surprisingly direct and honestly really elegant, creating this powerful literary experience. Let's look at a couple of foundational examples that really show munasaba in action. Okay, check this out. Take Surah Yunus, the chapter of Jonah. Its very first verse introduces the verses of the wise book. Now, if you jump all the way to the final verse, number 109, it commands the prophet to follow what is revealed from that book. This is a perfect thematic bracket. The whole chapter is this self-contained unit that starts and ends with the exact same core idea, the Quran's revelation. It's brilliant. And this kind of structural elegance is no accident. In fact, a lot of scholars argue that the key to a chapter's main theme is often hiding in plain sight, right in its title. The name itself becomes a kind of signpost, a clue to the chapter's core message and purpose. It's just another layer of this deliberate, integrated design. But it's not just about these big, broad themes across an entire chapter. Munasabah can be found at the micro level, even inside a single verse. Look at this example from Surah Al-Hadid. The verse pairs words with their exact opposites. Enters is paired with comes out, and descends is paired with ascends. This creates this amazing rhetorical balance, a kind of linguistic symmetry that really reinforces the meaning and gives the verse a unique poetic feel. So these thematic and linguistic links, they provide a really powerful framework for the Quran's coherence, and it's been studied for centuries. But some researchers have taken this search for patterns a step further, into a much more hidden and, frankly, a much more debated territory. They ask this very question: what if the structure is also reinforced by a mathematical or maybe a numerological layer, a kind of code running underneath the text itself? And, this line of thinking has led to some truly fascinating observations. One number that seems to pop up again and again in these studies is 19. Its significance is noted in a few different ways, but one of the most famous examples is that Surah Al-Alaq, which is widely considered the very first chapter revealed to Prophet Muhammad, contains exactly 19 verses. Things like that have made 19 a number of real interest. And then there's another key number, 7. This number is famously tied to the 7 Mahani, a group of 7 short, really powerful chapters, including the opening chapter, that are the most frequently recited by Muslims all over the world. So you have these two numbers, 19 and 7, that some people see as major structural anchors. So the big question is, how could these numbers possibly connect to the Quran's overall structure? Well, let's walk through how they build into what some researchers believe is a huge interlocking system. It's pretty wild. The analysis actually starts with a super simple repeating pattern that researchers noticed. If you take the number 7 and you add 6, you get 13. Okay. If you add 6 times again, you get to 19.
This creates a simple little arithmetic sequence, right? With the number 6 acting as the bridge that connects our two key numbers.
Now, right now, this might just seem like a fun little coincidence. But just watch what happens when you take these numbers and you apply them to the bigger structure of the Quran. So if you take the number 19 from the end of our sequence and you multiply it by that connecting number, 6, you get 114. And 114 is the exact total number of chapters, or surahs, in the entire Quran.
I mean, that's already a pretty stunning connection, but it's not the only one. Remember that middle number in our sequence, 13? Well, it also appears to map onto the Quran's structure in a very specific way. Get this. If you take that number, 13, and multiply it by the same connecting number, 6, you get 78. And chapter 78 is the precise starting point of what's known as Juz 30, which is the final part of the Quran, running all the way to the final chapter, 114. So the same pattern seems to point to both the total number of chapters and the start of the book's final section. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, the goal of this kind of analysis for the people who do it isn't really about finding some kind of secret code. It's more about deepening one's appreciation for the text's incredible complexity and its multi-layered artistry. Which, of course, leaves us with the final massive question. We've seen thematic bookends, linguistic symmetry, and these numerical patterns that seem to just perfectly align with the text's structure. Are these simply remarkable coincidences that came out of centuries of analysis? Or are they signs of a deliberate, divine design? That's a question for you to ponder.